Good morning, you strange and wonderful weirdos. I'm John.
I'm Stacey.
It's Monday, January 23rd. And here's why. Today is strange.
Okay, so let's start off with a discovery from Egypt. All right, so archaeologists in Egypt have discovered a new papyrus. From the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
It's a fun word, isn't it? Papyrus.
Yes, I love that word. Papyrus. Papyrus. It's very nice. Now, this is the first time a complete papyrus has been found in a century.
Wow.
Which is a long time.
That's for those of you wondering.
Just in case. So now back in March of last year, archaeologists discovered 5 4,000-year-old tombs, and they recovered a bunch of sarcophagus and a bunch of items and lots of different things. And in one of the sarcophagi, there was this papyrus scroll, and they believed at the time it only measured about 9 meters. But once the papyrus was fully restored, it actually measured 16 meters, which is about 52 and a half feet.
Wow, that's a lot different than the way I thought that was going to go. It never usually works out.
Never pans out with what it actually says. No. It's usually misleading. Now, scholars have now confirmed that the scroll does indeed contain spells from the Book of the Dead. Now, the article goes into different facts about the Book of the Dead. It's not like you see in the movies. It's not like a book where they're like, do not read from the book, and it brings back the mummy and things like that. No. The Book of the Dead is just a collection of different spells, and scribes make them specific, whatever you want for certain people. You say which spells you want them to.
Specialized for your journey in the afterlife, as with most Egyptian death rites. You know that they take that little boat. Taking that boat on the sea of death. We're gonna go fight some people and they're gonna be scary. So you want to have everything along that you might need, and it's kind of cool actually.
It is.
I would dare say that mine would be like a Encyclopedia Britannica.
Well, they say they can be as short as 1 meter, but as long as, this one, I guess, 52 and a half.
Mother Teresa would have like a 1 meter one.
Right. She probably wouldn't need a lot of help in the afterlife.
Politicians, it would be like, well, golly, Hillary, maybe just use them all.
I guess they've seen them as long as 40 meters.
But they've all got stains on them. How did the papyrus get stains on them? Oh, I don't know. It was a really fun word, though, isn't it? Papyrus. All
right. So they don't know exactly what it says because, it's specific for each person. So they're in the process of translating it right now. So we'll have to figure that out later. We'll have to do an update.
Don't want to translate those things wrong, do you?
No. We want to know which spells are on there.
Seems like, says he who bagga boo shinga sha, and you like turn into a. What's those cool little things you wear sometimes? They're not beetles. They're
scarabs.
Scarabs.
Love scarabs. They are beetles. Scarab beetles, I guess.
They're, I got some weird Egyptian crap all over my room because of her. She really likes the cat. The cat thing.
Yes.
She dreams about it.
But very cool find. It was dubbed the Waziri Papyrus after Mustafa Waziri, who I guess was in on the discovery.
Thank God Zahi Hawass wasn't part of that.
No. I guess we probably wouldn't hear about it.
It would have been Hawassian's discovery.
It's going to be presented at the opening of that new museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum.
Oh, man, I really want to go to that.
Me too.
Because that's
amazing.
That's grand. And it's Egyptian.
Very grand. All right, let's move on.
Please.
Let's talk about another discovery, this one in Antarctica.
Oh, yes.
And this is about a monster space rock that is among the largest found in 100 years.
What's this with 100 years?
I don't know. It's also a century, a long time, as we pointed out already.
Do you think like 100 years ago somebody was doing some weird news for like a cool newspaper back when there was journalists?
Maybe.
And this married couple of journalists were sitting there like, what are we going to do for the story, Bob? And Bob was like, she was saying Bob.
I guess. I wasn't expecting that to be the woman's voice. Sorry.
I got to brush up on my femininity. Continue.
Okay, so a group of researchers have just returned from the ice-covered continent with 5 new meteorites that include an unusually large specimen. It weighs 16.8 pounds, placing it in the top 100 in terms of size for meteorites recovered in Antarctica over the past century.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, I get that. What's 16 pounds, eh? What's all these apples doing in the bottom of the bag? Apples. I didn't see any apples. Anyway.
We don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't know they cared about that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, they're saying over the last 100 years, they've recovered like 45,000, and this is one of the biggest ones.
But
so that's
it makes
amazing.
it sound like they weigh them like smallmouths.
Well, I mean, they do weigh them when they bring them back. Of course, they say that the size doesn't really matter. Even a small chunk can be scientifically valuable.
That's only what those polite little Harvard graduate, female archaeologists have to say.
Right.
It says it doesn't matter. It's just fine. It's very radioactive.
It's really interesting how they found this because Antarctica is great for meteorites because...
They all say that until they get the 16-pound one, don't they? 16-pound one comes, it's front page freaking news.
Yeah,
They've all got a glow about them. They're like, hey, look at Becky. She got a 16-pound rock. Oh.
We haven't really heard about the other 44,999, have we?
None of them even matter anymore. They don't even matter anymore. They can say what they want, fellas. But once they get that 16-pound rock...
Big rock. So Antarctica's great for meteorites. They don't deteriorate. There's not a lot of weathering. They're easy to find. But the way they found these were very interesting. They had what they call treasure map that was published last year that was created by AI that took into account like satellite imagery, ice flow, temperature, things that happened. And then it plotted possible areas that they would find meteorites. And they ended up finding 5 of them. They say it's about 80% accurate.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is amazing.
Because you got to think, they just go out into Antarctica. I mean, think how big that is. And they just wander about looking for meteorites.
Not something you want to do.
No, at least this way they have, targets they can go look at. So it's pretty amazing.
Too bad we just can't send the AI out to grab it.
That would be much better.
Yeah.
Much better. All right, let's move on. So let's talk about a story from Alaska. We don't usually get stories from Alaska.
Another cold place.
So... sometime in the past 100 years, I'm just kidding, no 100 years. So this is a story about a woman named Kelsey Haas. And Kelsey Haas is a hiking and rafting guide. And she was taking a group with her to a place called the Grewing Cay Glacier. And they were going up there to ice skate and look around and hike.
Sounds fun.
And this is just an interesting story about something that happened to her. Now, on the way up there, she found a rabbit that had died. Okay. And she happened to pick it up. She was very interested in it because it was not, no, it's a weird thing to do. She wanted to take it home and skin it and use the fur for something. Okay. She lives in Alaska. She does that kind of thing.
New bikini?
And she was really interested in it because there were no puncture wounds. She couldn't really tell how it died. She wasn't going to eat it. She's like, I wasn't going to eat it because I don't know how it died, but I wanted to use the fur. So she took it with her.
Had she known how it died, she would have ate the roadkill.
I guess. I don't know.
Pray continue.
So fast forward into the day, and they're on their way back. And as they were going past this certain spot in the glacier, they noticed this picturesque arch, and she just really wanted to go see it. Even though she knew that the ice might be a little thin over there, she still took a chance and she went. And everybody else sort of stayed back on the shore, and she fell through the ice. Like there was a hole, and she just immediately fell right in. Now her instinct kicked in, and she knew to turn back the way she came, and she was doing all the right things. And it turns out she was still holding the frozen hair in her hand. And that's what saved her life. She slung it out onto the ice, and it immediately froze, and she used the frozen hair stuck to the ice as an anchor to haul herself out of the water, out of the hole in the ice. And then she got back to shore, and they warmed her up. Had it not been for picking up that frozen hair, who knows what would have happened. It's amazing and fortuitous.
It's a really cool story.
It really is.
It really is.
Because, I mean, she just picked it up. It was strange. There was no reason for it to be there.
So can I ask you a couple just
Sure.
unpacking questions here.
Sure.
All right, so she's a guide.
She is hiking.
She takes other people out and tries to let them not get killed in Alaska.
Yes.
Which is it's a feat.
Right.
Okay, so what's she doing going on ice that she knows?
She said, in hindsight, it was probably not the best idea. She didn't take anybody with her.
I mean, what was she going after? Berries?
Some of the people were her friend. No, she said...
see a dead elk out there?
No.
I bet that one's complete.
I said she saw a very picturesque arch right in the middle of an iceberg, and she wanted to go get a closer look at this picturesque arch. I'm not sure what the purpose of that was.
Well, I'm glad we had a fortuitous experience.
Thank goodness she had the frozen hair with her in her hand. Saved her life.
Yes. You know what they say, a hair in the bush is, well, no, I don't know what this
Moral of the story, pick up the dead stuff. Right?
Don't pick up the dead stuff. Don't. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. What happened to your husband, Mrs. Jones?
He listened and watched your show. He loved you guys.
He picked up what he thought was a dead raccoon. And? Raccoon wasn't dead. Apparently it was in a deep sleep. Anyway.
All right. So let's move on and let's talk about some unusual burials that were found recently. Now, this first one is from Cambridgeshire, where they were uncovering graves dating about 2,500 years ago. Now, these are archaeological digs that will be featured on a show on BBC Two called Digging for Britain. And they found evidence of Roman...
I've watched this show, by the way.
Evidence of Roman and Iron Age settlements. Now, when they were digging, among all the other coins and brooches and things that they found graves that had decapitated skeletons dating back to the 3rd century AD. Now, they found 17 of these burials, and 11 of them out of the 17 had their heads positioned at their feet. Heads were taken off and put down at the feet. They have no idea why they were put this way. They were interred carefully, often buried with pottery. And in one case, a pottery vessel was found in place of the head because the head wasn't there. But they don't have any idea why that happened.
I mean, so they didn't... Could it have been like something where they thought they were possessed or some kind of creatures? I mean, that predated Christianity, so we can't blame them.
Right.
Considering where you're saying this happened.
Right.
It even predates like Viking invasions on a large scale. So, yeah.
It's just something unusual I don't think they've ever seen before, that particular burial custom. So they're not really sure why.
You can tell the people I came from. Because when they find their enemies with their heads chopped off and positioned up there.
Right. A little higher than their feet.
I would like them to find that.
I feel like they found that.
They did.
They found that before,
haven't
they?
Favorite ever.
They found them with
I was like, I don't need the DNA anymore. I found my ancestors.
I found my people. Interestingly enough, along with this article, I did find another article of some archaeological digs that uncovered a prehistoric mass grave. And in this mass grave, now this is in Slovakia, in this mass grave was a settlement from 5250 BC until 4950 BC. There were 38 well-preserved skeletons, but all of the skeletons except for one were missing their skulls.
Yeah.
And the only one that had one was an infant. Now, the bones were all jumbled together, suggesting that they were just sort of thrown or rolled in there. And several of the skeletons that they looked at closely, they looked at the vertebrae, it was preserved. So it wasn't a beheading. It was something that was, after the person had died, they had very carefully taken the head off before it decomposed.
Honestly, there's a lot of ancient structures even that you hear of. They're made from skulls.
This is true.
So
this is true. They don't really know why they've done this.
If you're wanting to scare off people,
true,
and you're just making like a little temple or something, a few thousand skulls might do the trick.
Right. I mean, even if you just did them in the gate, on either side of the
door.
door.
It's like the early days of ADT security. guy just comes out and be like, yeah, okay, well, I've taken a look at your home, and I think you're going to need about 20 skulls and a dead goat.
That should do it.
We'll monitor it consistently. Once every 3 years or so, we'll be right out.
Just very interesting. The skulls weren't in there in the grave at all. So, I mean, that could very possibly be what happened. They used them to build somewhere else.
I would say that they were used for something.
Some kind of purpose.
Yeah. I mean, because you got to think, there's not a lot of missing femurs, you know?
No, this is true.
If you're going to take something.
True. The skull would be the creepiest thing. Do you think they used them like cups or bowls or something, like the top of the skull? They're very rounded. I don't know.
Not sure what you were doing there for a second, but yeah, I'm sure they used it for that.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the story from Washington. And this is about a bizarre alert over a school intercom that prompted a lockdown. This is from Woodland, Washington, and this happened in a K-4 school.
Oh, no.
Oh, I know. It was awful. So the bus barn that they have like a bus place that has an intercom system that hooks into the school. It's called an Informacast public announce system. And the Informacast public announce system has preloaded, like test messages. And so I suppose the other day they were testing it, the IT department was testing it, and they just used whatever the preloaded test messages were on the system. So at this K-4 school, over the announce system, a message boomed out that said, "This is Hume Octopus. I am speaking to you from the future. Run for your lives, wretched humans. I will smash you all," and then laughed maniacally. And it was said in a very gruff voice. Needless to say, the children were terrified, and they immediately put the school in lockdown because they had no idea where the message was coming from. Now, they had to send letters home to the parents explaining what happened, and they were only in lockdown for about 5 minutes. It only took about 5 minutes to figure out what actually happened.
How long did it take to clean all their drawers?
It was awful. They did say that the IT department erased all the pre-recorded messages and recorded their own, saying things like, "This is a test of the public announce system." But could you imagine just being in class and all of a sudden this big, scary, gravelly voice coming over the intercom saying they're Hume Octopus, like a human octopus hybrid, and they're going to crush you all?
Hume Octopus is like, that's like your biggest, that I don't think I could think of a scarier thing for you.
I know, that would be awful.
You and all your conspiracy theories about octopi.
They're aliens. You just watch.
You think I'm the crazy one?
They're
all of you.
Aliens.
All of you.
They're plotting our demise from the ocean.
She's terrified of octopus.
I just think we need to keep our eye on them.
It's worse than her being terrified. She's not terrified of them. She doesn't trust them. When we go to the aquarium, she'll look through the glass and be like, "You can do all the playing around you want." I know what you're up to.
I know your plans.
Yeah, that would scare the hell out of me. And I would have my kid at a different school.
Well, I mean, it wasn't the school's fault.
I don't care. It's their fault if it happens.
They didn't know that the pre-recorded messages were going to be horrible. That should be Informacast's fault.
They should have listened.
I guess that's what they were doing. Only they tested it to the school. I don't know. Terrible. All right. Shall we move on?
Sure.
All right. Last story. This is another school story. This is something that happened at North Catholic High School in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well, this could be a number of things.
So, a counselor has reportedly been fired after asking a coven of witches to come and speak to the students, and they gave the Catholic students magic crystals as icebreakers. The headline for the story is just fantastic. I just love it. All right. So, a counselor who was a friend and former sorority sister of one of the women invited what she called female entrepreneurs, because they own a business called Elemental Magic, to come and speak to the students about starting a small business. Now, the secretary for the school was making a comment in this article, and she said the visit just went off the rails when the women started handing crystals out to the students. And one of the ladies said, apparently, that's a no-no for the Catholic religion. She said she didn't grow up Catholic. She didn't know. And it wasn't long after the incident, the counselor was actually fired from the school. And it turns out some of the students themselves are the ones that reported it to the to the administrators. Now, it says that, the Wiccan ladies said it wasn't, they weren't trying to do anything mean. They just intended it to be icebreakers, and they're just your basic crystals, nothing super fancy or anything. But, it just didn't go over well at the Catholic school. And they did have to explain to the gentleman doing the article that no, they did not worship Satan, and they weren't trying to convert anybody. They just,
Did they say they didn't worship him because of their lack of belief in him, or?
I don't know how much they explained. They
said how that road
They
went.
said they just, they worship the earth. And the one lady was like, I don't understand. These are crystals from the earth. God made the earth. God made the crystals. I don't see a problem.
He's like, yes, you're right.
I don't know.
And God also made the wood that I want to tie you to and get a kindling.
Oh, wow. Just the poor.
Been a long time since we burned one of y'all.
I feel like there are a lot of bad decisions made here. A lot of bad decisions.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at the positive side that we live in a time now where that ends in, someone just getting fired instead of the 1600s kind of fired.
And clearly the women are entrepreneurs. They do own a business. Small business that they started on their own. So I see where the counselor was kind of where her thinking was there.
Yeah. Well,
about that part of it, I think she probably should have, thought that through a little more. Maybe.
Wow. I wonder who else she had scheduled for the rest of the year. I wonder if we can get our hands on that. Church of Satan for, some kind of employment. It's like job fair, Tom. Scientology. Just bring them all.
I'll just trudge them all through here.
Have you seen Scientology trying to recruit Hulk Hogan?
I have not.
Okay. If you want to get down a rabbit hole.
Oh, wow.
So speaking of rabbit holes, dead rabbit holes that you shouldn't pick up and take with you unless you want to survive
falling through the ice.
Mm-hmm. I want to thank all of our new subscribers. Mm-hmm. Hi. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Hope you enjoy it. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies even if you don't like it. But keep subscribing. In fact, add new accounts. Subscribe to those. You don't ever have to go back to them. It just counts that you did it. We appreciate all of it. And we hope we keep you entertained and informed. It's what we do here. And that's why today is strange.